Well, welcome. I'm excited that you're with us for day two of the Debt Free in 2023 challenge. This has been an amazing time. I know it's just been one day, but we started with such impact, and I was so pleased with what we received on last night from our credit consultant, Cynthia Fortune. Now, what she shared last night, actually last night, let me catch up with myself because I'm excited about what's going on. We started a Facebook group, Debt Free in 2023. And so what she shared last night, we posted on the Facebook group, but we also posted on my website, dwaynehunt.org, and it's under teaching, under PowerPoint teachings. So her PowerPoint is on there. But then also, if you join the Facebook group, you can watch the presentation from last night. And there was so much information shared that is so valuable. And there are a lot of, we all hear bits and pieces about credit, and someone tells us this about credit, someone tells us that about credit. But last night we got some hardcore information about credit, about not just credit reports, but the difference between your FICO score and your Vantage score. We learned some things about what scores agency use and why you should or should not use a particular uh, um, agency to get your credit score. And like we found out that TransUnion is good if there are Brother Bobby, you can move the slide now and just put me up on the screen. TransUnion is best if you're having some debates. And we just learned a lot of stuff last night from Cynthia. And I'm excited about what's getting ready to happen tonight, because as I've been contemplating this and as I've been thinking about what's the best way for us to really help you when you commit to this journey to being debt free, so that we're not just throwing things at you, but we're actually helping you go from this step to that step to the next step, so that at the end of these 18 months, at the end of 2023, you will be debt free. Now, I want to be clear on this, and I'm going to say this several times. When we're talking about being debt free in 2023, I understand that a house is a tremendous debt, and cars can be large debts. That's why the finance time is extended or larger than other debts. We want you, when you listing your debt that you're going to pay off, put your house very last and your car above that. And we want to, by the end of 2023, get all of that installment loans, revolving credit card, all of that done, so that if there's anything left, it's nothing other than your automobile and your home. And should things go so well that you're able to get that car paid off, fantastic. And some may even tackle huge chunks of getting that mortgage paid off, getting it paid down, getting things changed. We just learned so much. But I want us to be so helpful and so specific and so precise that you will be debt free at the end of 2023. Tamara Cagle, thank you for joining us. Annette Jacobs, thank you for being back. Martha Lee Robinson, thank you for being here. Ann Johnson, excited that you are here, and others. We're excited to have you. But before we begin tonight, because Pastor Clifton Johnson is going to be here tonight, and he's going to carry us on this next step. But before we do, I want to share something with you. I want to share a positive testimony with you. This is not the first time that I've endeavored to help people tackle this. Sister Linda Holman, thank you very much for reminding us. Paying off hospital bills. I hadn't mentioned that, but that's a debt. and we want to get that paid off by the end of 2023. We're going to be rejoicing with you. We're going to be shouting with you because that debt is paid off. And like I say, this is not the first time that we've tackled this, where we have, encouraged people to get debt free. And so there's a person, a wonderful person, a good friend of mine, and a brother that I love dearly. And he embraced that vision. And Brother Derek, it's good to have you. Brother Derek Gascoigne, thank you so very much for agreeing. He's in Maryland right now. Every time I talk to him, I ask him, where are you now, Derek? Because he's subject to be anywhere in the world, because the lifestyle of living debt free has afforded you that when you're called, you can go, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Just for a few minutes before Pastor Cliff comes, because you don't want him to beat you in fantasy football. So be nice to him, okay?
Absolutely.
Before he comes, just share a little of your story, and about the teaching, the journey, and that it works.
Well, thank you again, Pastor, and again, greetings and grace to you all. I think had to be a good 15 years ago or more. I can't quite pinpoint it, but we started. Pastor Hunt started teaching about making friends with money. Now that really sounds real strange in the church community, because we always hear about money and it's the root of all evil and all of that stuff. And we had to be broken of that mentality of being poor and impoverished and understanding that we could make friends with money. So he taught about that, and I always say to anyone, that the key to getting better or to being better is you first have to submit yourself to someone that can teach you. You have to be able to, and especially men, we have to be able to submit ourselves to someone that can teach you. We have to be teachable. And I grabbed hold of that, and I said, that made sense. I was very interested in that teaching. And he talked about about tithing and talked about investing and talked about saving and paying yourself and things of this nature. And he had a lot of individuals that were teaching us as well. So I grabbed hold of that, and I started understanding about making friends with money. The drawback that I had was that I was afraid of being successful. And that's where Pastor Hunt, along with our great friend and my brother, Clifton Johnson, started saying, well, you don't have to be afraid. It is because God wants us to be successful. So I had to break free of, first of all, having an impoverished mentality, thinking that was just the way the Christians are supposed to be. They're supposed to be poor. Then I also had to understand that God had not given me the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of a sound mind. So with understanding that, now I was able to listen to someone. And again, the manual clearly tells us that we are supposed to seek out sound counsel. So I sought out Pastor Cliff. I had money at one time, and then I lost it just doing because I did not know. It's one thing about being ignorant. If you're ignorant about something, if you want to learn, you can always progress. You can come out of that ignorance and into prosperity. And so by listening, and one of the biggest things that Pastor Cliff told me was, okay, now you have debt now, and you have this IRA, and you have some savings, and I started to learn this one thing, and I hope everybody can get a hold of this. There's a difference between saving and hoarding. Saving and hoarding. And so what I started doing is I was trying to hoard money because I was afraid to lose it. So he helped me to understand what I need to do is pay off my debt and then work from there. And as a result, I did it incrementally. I paid off credit cards first, and now I'm at a position now as a professional musician. I can go anywhere I want because I don't have to worry about credit cards. All my credit cards are paid off. All I have now is just the rent that I have to pay, and I'm working on that even now. to stop renting, but to actually start to own, because I'm learning and I'm listening, because you can never stop growing. So, but all I have is just debt and a car note. The car note's going to be paid off at the end of next year. So at that point, I'm going to put all those funds into something so I can invest. Which again, what Pastor Cliff and Pastor Hunt always said, you've got to make sure that you can leave a legacy not only for your children but for your children's children. So as a result of just listening, being having a mind where you want to learn, and really making friends with money, that is what has helped me to get to this particular point. Now, I know people talk about the credit ratings. Well, my credit score went from 640 to now is at 820. Well, and that's good. But for me, it's not so much about the score, but how I feel. I feel free now. I don't have to worry about. I'm not looking over my back and wondering what if or what is going to happen. And it's all because I submitted myself to a couple of men that really understood the concept of making friends with money. So that's what I'd like to share.
Derek, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the plug for the message that we just shared, that for those who are watching that aren't familiar with that, they can go to the YouTube page. They can actually go to my YouTube page if they want to see the condensed version of it, because we did 4 streams where we talked about the 4 streams of income. And Pastor Cliff was critical to that message too. How to make friends of money. That's something Jesus taught us, because many times we don't have the right Christians don't always think the right way about money. We want it. We want God to bless us with it. But then if somebody has more than us, then we kind of think that they must have done something shady to get it or whatever. And we're just all so confused about it. And then what we do have, we don't know how to manage. And when we don't have, we use credit cards to get, and we just go into this vicious cycle. And so if it weren't for people like Pastor Cliff, because I thank the Lord that he's given me wisdom to teach certain things, but then behind that, I'm able to point people toward Pastor Cliff, who is able to walk them through certain steps to get to where you are. I can say, my brother. And I'm excited that you're going to be debt free by the end of 2023. And tomorrow night, we're going to be even talking a little bit about home ownership, because that's one of the things that we want to progress to. But we're not going to take Pastor Cliff's time. Brother Derek, thank you so very much for sharing your testimony.
Thank you for having me.
For being for encouraging people on the journey and letting them know that where you are, they can do it too, right, Brother Derek?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everyone can do this. It's just a matter of submitting yourself to sound counsel and following the process and not operating in fear.
That's right. Thank you, Derek. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
The Bible says in Proverbs 20:20, it says, believe his prophets and you shall prosper. And that's what Derek is talking about. There's something that I said in the message on Sunday, and that is that one of the reasons why the enemy wants you to think that all the preacher wants is your money is so that when the preacher starts talking about money, you will shut him out. You will stop listening. And what if Derek had done that? Then if he thought I'm teaching him to make friends with money so that I could have some of his money, then he would shut me out and he wouldn't be where he is today. And so we want you to realize that our objective is to help you prosper, because our desire for you is the same desire that the Lord has for you. And the scripture says in Psalms that the Lord takes pleasure in the prosperity of his people. It says in Deuteronomy that he gives you the power to get wealth. And he doesn't give you the power to make other people wealthy. That's not what it says. He gives you the power to get wealth. So tonight, I'm bringing in our next financial prophet. And I am so excited to have him. He's a man that I admire, a man that I love, a man that I look up to, a man that I respect. Pastor Clifton Johnson, welcome. Debt-free in 2023. It's good to see you, my brother.
Good evening. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you. Pastor Cliff, you don't just do what you do. You have a little bit of a story too. Can you take just a moment to share a little of your story before we get in depth? I just want people to kind of to let them know for real what you're talking about.
Okay, well, I'll talk about my experience. I guess I had over 25 years of experience in government, government finances. Here in my hometown, Tunica. At a couple of years, we had over $100 million in our budget that I managed for the county. After I finished that, retired from that in 2013, spent some time working at a bank as a loan officer for 4 years, and that's where I, began to get more tuned into how people spent money and different things they were doing. And actually, being at the bank sort of pushed me into this what I'm doing now as a financial advisor, because I would see people, on a monthly basis have run up about $400 or $500 a month in insufficient fund fees, and I just knew there had to be a better way for them to manage and find ways to put that money to better use. And so that just really just getting burdened with that led me into this opportunity that I am with right now, and helping people not just to get out of debt, but also just to build wealth and provide for their families. It's been a wonderful ride for me to be able to have the different experiences that I've had, even at one time owning my own business. So all of those things really gave me a well-rounded mindset to be able to do what I'm doing now and to help the people that I help.
One of the things that I really admire about you is not just that you have financial knowledge or financial education, and so many people have financial knowledge and financial education, do those things for their own gain. But with your financial knowledge and education, what I'm seeing you do is you want other people to get ahead, and I so honor you for that, and I admire you for that, and I celebrate that. And I'm saying that not just to you, but I'm also saying that so that the people listening will understand that you're not just. Paul says something in the letters. Bobby, I think that's Derek's audio. Paul says something in the letters. He says, I don't just share the gospel, I share my life. And that's what I think about you when you're doing this, when you're talking to someone about their finances, even like with Derek, when Derek was telling his story. And when you were talking to Derek at that particular time years ago, you weren't doing what you did now. You were doing it out of sharing your heart, sharing your life. And so I so admire that about you. And I want you all, those of you watching, I want you all to know that you all are getting ready to listen to a man who's going to share his wisdom, but he's also sharing his heart. And I so respect you for that, Pastor Cliff. Cynthia last night got us started on this journey to be debt free in 2023. And one of the things that you talk about with being debt free, with not just being debt free, but helping us to be where we need to be financially, is building a solid foundation. Can you talk about that for a little bit, Pastor Cliff, what you mean about building a solid foundation and make that analogy that you do so well?
Yes, sir. So to me, every plan has to have a good solid foundation. And so I sort of, look at a financial plan as like you're building a house. And so if you're building a house, of course, we know we got to have plans and drawings to start. And so, you write your goals down as to where you want to go and where you want to get, even with your financial plan. For some people, that's going to be, retirement. For some people, that's educating their kids. And so it's just different things. For business people, it's retirement and having adequate cash flow. And so no matter where you're going, you start right with the written part of the plan. But the foundation, when you think about the house, building a house and the foundation, if the foundation is not set right, then the house correctly, and then you'll have all kinds of problems. And so when it comes to the foundation, your financial foundation, the foundation, your financial plan, there are a number of things that are tied to that, in which we'll talk about. I'll just go over right now. But you got wills and trusts in there. You got an emergency fund, and an emergency fund is so critical, which most financial planners and advisors will tell you. That's 6 months of income, but it's so critical because a lot of times we end up in debt because we don't have that part of our foundation in place, an emergency fund. Okay, and so we got to start doing that, and we start that really by doing one of the things that you'll hear everybody say. You've heard this over and over. If you've done anything with finances, pay yourself first. Pay yourself first. Now, that's a hard thing to do because I'm 60 years old in a couple of months, actually next month. And so my parents taught me to pay my bills. And so, when I was growing up, when I started working, I had this mindset: if you create a bill, you pay the bill, pay the bill. Never was taught to pay yourself. And so I think a lot of times we find ourselves in some of our tough financial situations because we haven't learned how to put this part of the foundation in place. And so we have to pay ourselves first. And I sort of recommend like having a goal of paying yourself about 20%. Now, I know everybody probably can't start out doing 20%, but you start with the percentage that you're able to do at that particular time. But the goal is to begin to set something aside for yourself. And if you think about like in the parable of the talents in Matthew chapter 25, there's a part at the end where Jesus says, to him who has, more will be given. Well, if you don't start putting away for yourself, you don't have any, so you can't really get any more. He can't really add anything to it. And so when you start looking at setting up this part of your foundation, again, I recommend 20%. And I just have it broken down here. You want 5% to go to your emergency fund. And listen, when you do this, you want this to be in a separate account because you want this money to where you are not going to be accessing it, so it can start to grow. So you want to set it up to like a separate account, preferably one that's earning some interest, because we want to have some growth. You don't need to be concerned about, getting the highest amount of interest. You just want it earning something. Again, following the principle in the parable of the talents, money is supposed to be making more money. And so 5% towards your emergency fund. Then you want to also set aside another 5% to build wealth, okay? Because you want to grow. Money is supposed to be growing. And again, when you look at the parable of the talents, the master went away and gave them money, and he told them to invest it. And so a lot of people will want to invest in different things. And we get into the number of things you can invest in as we walk through your individual plan. But you want to set aside 5% to begin to build wealth. You also want to set aside a percentage for fighting inflation. Now, we're in a unique time right now because the inflation rate is up over 8%. Normally it's between 2 and 3%. So, if you were setting aside 5% for inflation, you'd have enough money built up so that you would be able to deal with all the increases in the prices right now. And so if you right now begin to set aside 5%, that would be below the inflation rate, but eventually inflation will come back down and you'll be able to build that part of your foundation so that you'll be able to handle any kind of increase in prices and things like that come along. And then I also recommend setting aside some money for enjoyment. God allows us to live, and he wants us to have fun, to live in peace, and to live in an abundance. And so we need to set aside some part of our budget or our plan for just enjoying ourselves. And normally when we don't do that, we sometimes go into debt because we may plan a large vacation and normally most people are going to put that on a credit card or go borrow some money. When I was at the bank, people would actually come in to the bank in May and June and actually do loans to take vacation. But if we were doing this as part of our regular foundation, then when we get ready to do those things, that money would already be there. And so
now, Pastor, when I see what you put up on the screen, I calculate that as being 40% of income. And
no, that's 20.
No, 20%. Oh, you're saying that are you saying that each one of those 5% is paying yourself?
No, each one of those 5 make up the 20. So that's
okay. All right.
Right.
All right. Well, that clears that. And then I want to come back later on and ask you about the offsetting inflation component of it. But you're still talking about 20%, paying myself 20%. And then
Right.
there's the 10% that we're going to encourage you to give to the church. And if you're not a member of the church, then we're going to encourage you to give it to charity, because we work as believers, 10% is not lost. A lot of times we act like, I got to give God 10%. No, we don't give God 10%. We work for a boss who allows us to work on a 90% commission. We are blessed to have that kind of a boss.
Right.
And so, but you're saying 20%. But right now, with us talking to people who are working to get out of debt, some of them don't have 20%. Now, so you've told us what our goal needs to be, what our objective needs to be. And I've given an objective. We want you to be debt free in terms of, revolving credit, installment payments, credit cards. And we want you to get to the point where your car is paid for too. So I've laid this out and you're laying this out. Now the question is, how are we going to get there? How do we get there? What's the next step to getting there?
So at this point, once you identify that that's part of your foundation, then normally what I walk people through is of your expenses and income. And so one of the first things we want to do is, write down, what are you spending your money on? Most people don't know. So I always advise people, take a pad, a piece of paper or whatever, and for 30 days, write down everything you spend your money on. If you go to the gas store, you buy gas. If you walk into the store and you buy, at the front counter, they got candy and all these types of things, and you pick something up, whatever you buy, put that on that piece of paper. Do that for 30 days, and then you'll have an idea of where you're spending your money. And so one of the things we want to do is we want to eliminate what I would term like destructive expenses. And destructive expenses are those things that, for the most part, are not necessary. We know we got to, like we talked about last night, utilities and things like that, food. But sometimes we have things like subscriptions that we forget about, and that's eating away. What I call leakage of our funds. That's eating away at it. Money's leaking out that way. Money could be leaking out on high interest loans. Money could be leaking out on overeating, or eating out a lot. A lot of people spend a lot of money eating out a lot. And so it may sound like it's a large number for people to try to set aside, but once we take a look at what you're spending your money on, then we can easily, I think, come up with that 20% and start setting it aside for yourself. And I'll give you a testimony of one of my clients right now. When I initially actually, it's sort of interesting. The client contacted me to want to set up a meeting. And so we scheduled a meeting, and on the day of the meeting, the client canceled. So I'm used to that because normally it takes about 4 or 5 times sometimes to meet with people. So we scheduled another meeting, and on the day of the meeting, the client called again and wanted to cancel. And I says, well, let's just meet. I mean, we don't have to, there's no pressure. We're just going to meet and have a discussion, talk about what you want to accomplish. And the client says, okay, come on. So I drove, to meet with the client, and immediately when I got out, the client started apologizing for how bad they said their financial situation was, and they started saying that's why they wanted to put the meeting off. And I said, well, let's just sit down and talk. Things probably better than you think. So we sat down and we started going over their expenses. The client had their checkbook and their check register, and they could identify everything they were spending their money on. And so it was pretty interesting when we finished. I took her income and I took all of her expenses. And when we finished, when we got down to the end, the client had almost $2,000 free. But every month she was running out of money. And so she realized that what she was doing was she would see extra money in her bank account, and then she would just find something to spend it on. Okay. And it was like, mostly unnecessary stuff. And so from that encounter, from that, that just being able to sit down and go over those expenses, she was able to find her 20% and start setting that money aside for the things that she really needed to do.
Okay, so see, this is I think what we needed to hear is that before they sit down and talk to you uh, about advising them financially where to invest to grow their money, I think that we need those conversations with you to help us look at how we're spending our money so that we can, because we probably have more money to invest than what we realize, or more money to pay off debt than what we realize. And we're in financial situations. In many cases, a lot of times we say, well, I don't have the money. Technically, in many cases, we do have the money. We just haven't been, we're wondering, instead of telling our money where to go, as John Maxwell says, we're wondering where our money went.
Right.
And
Right.
so you're saying if we would take the time to find out where our money went at the end of the month. And some of you out there, I know you, come on, let's be for real. You're not going to have a pad with you and you're not going to write it down. So let me tell you what to do. Go online to your banking statement, because if most of you using your debit card now, look through your banking statement at your debit card and look at the little things that you spent your money on. Itemize it step by step, and then go through that. I'm just giving them another way, Pastor Cliff, for those who well-intentioned won't do what you do. You won't do it the way you tell them to do it. And now we don't use our checkbooks as much. And some folk, when they were using the checkbook, they weren't using the check register. So go online, but figure out what it is that you've been spending. And I like the way he put it: eliminate destructive expenses. Eliminate destructive expenses. Pastor Cliff, why do you call those expenses destructive?
Well, I mean, those expenses that are not necessarily they're preventing you from really being able to put your plan in place. So, and again, normally they just lead to more and more debt and more, lead us into a worse situation than we really would be in if we didn't have those things, coming against us. And so, I just think, we can have constructive things and destructive. So the things that are unnecessary really are destructive to our plan. And the constructive things, again, looking at the parable of the talents, money is supposed to be growing. And so you want to find places to put money to where it's actually moving, growing or increasing for you. And so as we eliminate the destructive things, then we can find the money that we need to start doing the constructive things, which really going to make people feel good. And so, when we're talking about building a house, you got the foundation, and then, next thing you start seeing is the walls going up. People get excited when they see the walls going up, because then they can start identifying rooms and things like that. And so growing the money after eliminating the destructive part is really exciting to people. And it never fails that when people start seeing their balances increase, they start getting more and more excited, and they want to put more money into it. They want to make it grow even more and faster. And so we got to look at those expenses, got to eliminate the destructive things. And again, some things we don't even think about, like gym memberships that we don't use, subscriptions to magazines and all these kinds of things, eating out. I used to spend a lot of money at Starbucks because I used to have all my meetings at Starbucks. And so, I'd probably have about a couple of $100 a month in the Starbucks bill, And so there are a lot of different ways that we have our money going out that's destructive to our plan. And we want to eliminate those to move toward the constructive things. And even when you look at, putting money where it can grow, the parable of the talents, 2 of those servants actually invested their money and they doubled it. So you want to start trying to find ways to put money into, so for example, if you can invest $1 in something, you want to be able to at least grow that dollar or double that dollar. And there are ways of doing that, that that we could get into the standpoint of an overall plan and other opportunities for you when you sit down and talk to someone like me. But you want to start putting that money to a constructive use rather than destructive, making it grow.
I appreciate that so much, that terminology, because it's a good way of actually giving yourself a check when you're getting ready to spend money. Is this money going for constructive use or destructive use? And I understand that there may be some occasional neutral uses, but if we look at it like that, that can help us make some decisions. And Pastor Cliff, while you're teaching, your wife is also teaching. She gave us a wonderful idea. You know, you mentioned the pad, you know, to write down everything. Of course, you did say you'll be 60 next month, so I guess that's what old folk do. You know, younger folk like me said, do go online, but your wife, who's the youngest of all, she said, well, use your phone, because there are apps like Notes and what have you where you can document things. Thank you, Sister Ann. Thank you. Your husband's going to tip you for helping him. But there are ways. There's really no excuse, is really what I'm saying. There's no excuse for not being able to do that. Because if you've gone out and if you've worked for that money, and here's the thing, Pastor Cliff, we work so hard for the money, and when we get to look at the check stub, we want to make sure that they gave us everything that we're supposed to get. You know, you understand what I mean? You know, we know how many hours we worked and whatever, or what our commission should be, and we want to make sure we got everything. But then when it comes to spending it and exposing of it, we're so casual about doing that. And that part doesn't make sense. So but you say something else on that slide, maximizing income. It's not just eliminating destructive expenses. You say we need to generate productive cash flow. What do you mean by that?
Well, so we know we have to work, right? And so, but there are other ways of generating cash flow. You know, for example, you when you started making friends with money, you talked about cleaning out the clutter. You know, people have so much money, like in their homes, in their attics, in their garage, that they don't recognize that that's cash flow. That's money that could be put to good use. And I'll give you a good example. My wife, glad she's on here. She would do a garage sale every year, and it became so popular that people would start, they would see her at the post office. When are you going to have the sale? When are you going to have the sale? And so she would do it every year, and every year without fail, generate over $1,000 and just getting rid of stuff that we just had, just sitting in the attic. And so there are different ways that people can generate cash flow like that. Some people take on other jobs. Be careful about that, because you could wear yourself out, but there are different things you could do. Some people, when we get into the investment stuff and things like that, people find other things that they can invest in where they can generate cash flow. But you want to be able to maximize cash flow, whether you take a job that benefits you from the standpoint of the pay. That's one thing, and that's a good thing. But find money just lying around, like, again, in your garage, in your attic, and just get rid of things that you don't use, and that can begin to be part of the money that you put in your emergency fund, or you can begin to set that aside for building wealth. And so there are different things that people can do to begin to do that.
Your friend Martha Lee Robinson is a friend of yours, right?
Yes.
She mentions rental property income. So that's one way of making. But if you don't own the house, other ways, you mentioned your wife. I know that your wife is very creative. And so for some people that can be a side job, and for some people that can turn into a job. And when we talked about the message, 4 streams of income, we talked about being creative or having entrepreneurial ideas. And so when you say another job, you're not necessarily saying go out and work another 40 or 20 hours a week. But sometimes it's what's in our hands, or what our ability is, what you can cook, what you can make that can produce income.
Correct. That's correct.
So, Pastor Cliff, when you also one of the things that you're very concerned or have a great concern for helping people with, you talked about the foundation, but also I'll use the word protection. That people are protected financially. What are some of the ways that they need to be protected?
So one way is I talked about the emergency fund, but one way is having like a will or a trust in place. Most people will say, okay, I don't have enough, or they don't think they have enough assets to have these documents in place. But these are critical documents that can protect whatever you're building. But not only that, in the case of like in our time, we have a lot of single family households with children, and anytime something happens to an adult and the kids are under 18, in most states, the state determines what happens to kids. And so those assets aren't protected, or if they haven't designated what happens with their kids in the event of something happens to them, then that could be a way that assets can begin to get away from the family, because somebody administering a trust with kids under 18 costs something. You got to call an attorney just to get funds out to do normal everyday things. And so having that part in place can help that. Health insurance, life insurance, disability insurance. If you get hurt, one of the things I think about right now is like people that are dealing with long COVID. COVID wasn't here 2 or 3 years ago, and so now it's here. And so there are people suffering for a long time. If they had disability income or disability insurance in place, then that would be something that could protect part of their income, so it wouldn't put them in a place of being devastated. And so when we start thinking about protection, we want you to make sure that as you're building your plan, things don't come along and just wipe you out. And so protection is there to make sure that these things are a part of protection, to make sure that you don't get wiped out and you can continue to build your plan. And again, life insurance is there in the event that something happens to you. Your plan can still be completed, and you can designate how that can be completed through like a will or having a trust. And so these are things that are in place to help protect us, so that it gives us the freedom to really go out and do the things that we need to do, like the investing and the build your wealth and things like that.
So you're saying that a person doesn't have to consider themselves wealthy or rich to do a will or a trust, but you want all of our viewers who are watching to understand that if you don't do a will or a trust, that what's going to happen is when you pass, and we all will at some point, if we have not, we lose and our family lose control over what we've worked so hard for. Is that more or less what you're saying? And then we want to make sure that control is not lost.
Correct. Yes, especially if we have minor children, under 18. And I'll tell you, along those lines, one of the things that I see a lot of people do that have children under 18, they want to make them beneficiaries on their life insurance, on their 401ks and things like that. And again, when something happens to them and those kids are under 18, now that gets tied up in an estate or put in an estate for them for later, but somebody else is managing that. And so, it's important that we understand how to protect ourselves and protect our families by having these things in place. Because again, any one of these could be catastrophic if we don't have this protection in place.
And see, what I actually hear you saying is that the Bible says there's safety in counsel. And so we all need to, at certain points, sit down and talk with someone. You said something that was so very critical last night. You say we get annual physicals. You say we go to the dentist every 6 months. But when it comes to sitting down and talking with someone about our finances, we don't do it. And so many of us are overdue for having a conversation with a financial counselor. And so you're talking things now that some people may be thinking, well, that's kind of a little bit over my head, a will or trust, or you don't know anybody in your family that's ever done that or anything in those categories. And so that's one of the reasons why you are here, because you are one of those persons that that someone can make an appointment with to talk to. And affirm that, I guess I'll say, because I'm not doing this right now because, for everybody that's on, we told you we're not trying to sell, we're trying to help, but we don't fully help you if we don't tell you where to go if you need that help.
Right.
Am I frozen or is Pastor Cliff
Yeah,
frozen?
it's so in financial checkup. Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. It seems
So,
like
yeah.
my screen is frozen.
Okay. So yeah, it's so important that we get those financial checkups. And I like to think about, like, one of the most invasive things to me is to be at a dentist with my mouth open and somebody working on me, and then, even, as a man having a prostate exam, that's invasive to me, and I know for women that have to have their annual exams and things, but it's interesting when it comes to financial checkups, people are like embarrassed or whatever. But I mean, it's most embarrassing to me to have like a medical checkup. And so I think it's important that we have these, because there are things that you won't encounter. There are things that the average person will not encounter when they sit down and talk with someone, or unless they sit down and talk with someone, like, protecting your assets, building your retirement, and not letting money get away from you from that standpoint. When to when is the best time to start drawing Social Security? Those people getting close to Social Security age, their optimal time for taking. Most people don't know that if you have another job and you have earned income, then part of your Social Security can be taxed. And so there are a lot of different things that people just don't know because they don't sit down and talk with a financial professional that could guide them in those particular areas. It's very important, to try to sit down at least once a year, but you can have as many meetings as you want, but at least once a year, sit down, especially when you start working on your plan, because you want to be able to assess what you want. In most things, we do things and then we assess the progress of it. You need to assess the progress of your financial plan, at least on an annual basis. And then again, doing it with someone that has more knowledge about certain things than you do. And I think that would be very beneficial. And then that would prevent a lot of the things that we see with people losing assets, with people, I see people accessing 401ks before they're 59 and a half, which means they pay a 10% penalty. I've seen people take money out of government pension plans after being, vested for a period of time because they changed jobs and they haven't done some of the other stuff like the emergency fund and things like that. So they get in trouble and then they go and draw money out of their pension. And then they're starting over because somewhere else they got some more time to vest in a particular retirement plan. So there are a lot of different things that we get hurt, a lot of different ways we get hurt because we just don't have the knowledge, because we don't sit down and talk with someone that's more knowledgeable than us in these particular areas.
And that's one of the reasons I'm so glad that so many of you are on tonight, and so many of you are making the commitment to be debt free in 2023. And the information that we're giving you, for many of you, you wouldn't be getting this information if you were left on your own. And what I mean by that is we're bringing this to you. All you're having to do is to sit down and turn on your Facebook or turn on your YouTube. You're not having to make an appointment with anyone or rearrange schedules or pay fees or anything like that. We're just providing this for you. And so you're gaining information that will help you on this journey to be debt free in 2023. And I hope that you're making that commitment, that you are making that commitment to be debt free in 2023. Now, Pastor Cliff, we have a question. Linda Holman asked the question. She says her house is paid for. Congratulations. She says, what do I need to do having 4 children? I know you would ask more questions than that, but go ahead and talk to her for a minute.
Well, it's going to be dependent on what you want to do. Like if you, your house is paid off. So do you have your emergency fund in place? How's your retirement set? I mean, when do you want to retire? Do we need to put more money in there? How old are the kids? Is there money set aside for their college education or for the things that you want to see them accomplish? And then not only that, one part of the plan we haven't talked about yet is, there's legacy. We're supposed to be leaving something good for the kids that are and the people that are coming behind us. So where are you with your legacy plan? So there are a lot of different things that she could consider, but it's going to be based on those things that are important to her. Is she well protected? Do you have all of the things in place for your protection? You have your retirement.
She says her children are grown.
Okay, so it depends. I mean, so she could be thinking about legacy. She could be thinking about her retirement. She could be thinking about continuing to build her emergency fund. I mean, there are a lot of different things that she could be thinking about just to continue to build on her having that prosperous life that the word tells us we're supposed to have. And so she's in a good position. I think she's in.
What do you mean by legacy?
What do I mean by
legacy?
Proverbs tells us that we're supposed to leave an inheritance to our children's children. So we're supposed to be, none of us can take whatever we build with us. And so we need to have a strategy for passing something on to those that are behind. And so in our culture, we have not done a good job of this because every generation starts from zero. Okay. And so there are things that we can do. It's actually interesting. There are things you can do in the foundational part that could actually provide for the legacy, right? And then you could actually be using your assets all of your life, enjoying life, living the abundance that God says we can live. And so we need to think about that. And if we don't have children, I met with a client the other day that he's in his 60s, his wife, they never had kids. And so there are things that he's even thinking about from this kind of charitable organizations that he wants to have an impact on when he leaves, And so there are a lot of different things we could do for legacy, but for those of us that have kids and grandkids, we can begin to do things for them. My wife and I right now are actually working on things for our great grandchildren by doing something for our grandchildren. And so it's very critical that be a part of the plan, that you really spend some time and focus on, because, we don't want to keep seeing our generation start from zero. And so that's a very critical. And I sort of tune that as we got the foundation in place, protecting, we got the walls going up, growing our money. And then, we put the roof on, we're secure, we feel secure. And so that roof, when the roof goes on, we're actually leaving a legacy. So we're based on the end of our life, but we got to leave something for the people that are coming behind.
We have another question on the screen.
And I see the question on the screen.
Go ahead.
So it's going to be based on what your what your likes are, what your passions are, because there are a number of ways you can grow money. I mean, some people grow money in the stock market, but not everybody likes the stock market. Some money in real estate investment, things like that. Some people invest in other businesses. So there are a number of different ways to grow money. Some people, you can grow money, it doesn't grow as much in like a savings account or a CD, but there are ways of growing money. And then one of the things that we traditionally have not really learned about is like, there are people who grow money through life insurance policies. So there are a lot of different ways to grow money. It's just going to depend on, what her particular preference is and what each individual's preference is. What they can, if they can deal with risk, they may want to do some investments in the market. But if they can't deal with that, then there are other ways that they can grow funds. It may take a little bit longer, but it's still a solid way to do it.
And so one of those decisions, or coming to that decision, or that conclusion, has to do with, or can be aided by sitting down and talking with you or someone like you, correct?
Correct.
Brother Bobby, will you put Pastor Cliff's contact information on the screen, please? And I want you all to have that. I also want you all to know that at the end of this session that we're going to be posting our video from tonight, and we're also going to post the slides that you've seen. They're going to be on the Facebook group. Now, we're excited about those of you who've joined the Facebook group, because the Facebook group is designed to offer support to each other, to give information. Our speakers We'll be periodically providing information to you on the Facebook group, and we'll have people sharing their success stories, like Derek Gasquet did at the beginning of the stream tonight. He had a success story of being debt-free and what that has meant to his life. And so we want you to share your success stories. It's also a forum for us celebrating. You get a bill paid off, and let us know so we can celebrate with you, because you're on that journey. You're on that way to being debt-free by the end of 2023. So if you have not joined the Facebook group, we want you to join. And so you just search for Debt Free in 2023, and you'll see the logo, the image. Brother Bobby, put that image up that they expect to see, that they can see with that. Thank you very much. That's the image that you'll see when you go to Facebook, and when you search for Debt Free in 2023, you'll see that image. Click to join the group. And then we want you making your comments. We want you commenting on the videos, or on our speakers, on the sessions. This is day 2, and tomorrow is going to be day 3. And then I have a special announcement. I have something I have to share with you. I have something that I have to tell you. And that is that we are actually going to do a bonus night. Wednesday night at 7, we're doing a bonus night for 1 hour. And the bonus night, we're going to have our speaker from last night, and we're going to have our speaker from tomorrow night. And it's just going to be a time of taking questions. So Cynthia Fortune, Priscilla Harrell are going to be here with me, and Bobby Hawkins, and we're going to be taking questions. And this bonus night is just to focus on that, because we know that you received a lot, but then as you're trying to put it together, and as you're getting ready to go forward on this journey, we want to do our very best that we can to help you. And so Pastor Cliff is going to sort of wrap things up with with what he's sharing, and then Priscilla Harrell is going to come in and tell us about what she's doing tomorrow night. Go ahead, Pastor Cliff.
Right. So it's so critical that we have a plan. Okay, that's the main thing. Have a plan, and sit down and talk with someone that can help you develop that plan. You want to make sure you have your taking care of your protection. Most critical one is that we don't have an emergency fund. We want to have a plan to grow our money, and there are different ways of doing that. People like myself could help you based on your passion or what you have a tolerance for to grow your money, and also based on what you want to accomplish. And then, getting toward the end, retirement, there's certain a lot of things that we just don't have time to share in these settings, but how much money are you putting away? Are you putting away enough to actually grow your retirement and live peacefully and comfortably in retirement? So all those things are part of the plan, and want to make sure that you give. Pastor mentioned that first you want to make sure you give to the church, and if not to the church, find a charity to give to. But giving actually creates an opportunity for stuff to come to us, and so that's a very, very critical part of the plan. And then we want to make sure that we leave something behind for the people that are coming behind us, and because we don't want to see generation after generation starting from zero. And so I would advise you get an annual financial checkup. The word says that we're not just to be hearers of the word, but doers. Okay. And many seminars where I'll have 40, 50 people attend the seminar to get information, and then nobody follows up. So they don't really get the benefit of actually, the information or the additional information that they could get that could really, really help their plan. So I would advise you, contact a financial advisor or a person that's very knowledgeable in those areas. Sit down and go over your plan, and they can help you improve on what you're doing. And again, I'm here. I would love to have a session with each one of you. Doesn't cost anything, but it would give you an idea of where you are and where you want to go.
Thank you, Pastor Cliff. I hope you all heard that. Pastor Cliff said he would love to have us sit down with you, and it won't cost you anything. So I hope you got that information from Pastor Cliff or for Pastor Cliff. And then we'll post that on the Facebook page. But we want to bring in right now Priscilla Harrell, our speaker for tomorrow, so she can give us a preview of what we can expect on tomorrow evening. Priscilla, welcome. I don't know, did you mute yourself or did Bobby mute you?
Yeah, she has to unmute herself. I can't do it.
Priscilla, you're muted. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay.
There you are.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been an exciting 2 days. I am so excited about everything that's happening. It's time. It's perfectly timed. I am Priscilla Harrell. My background is in finances. I have spent many, many years in banking, mortgages, and to current, I am a HUD-approved housing and financial counselor and a real estate broker. And I spend many, many hours with consumers preparing them for home ownership, to have a better job, just to be a better steward of money. So tomorrow, we will work through a plan to help us reset our mindset to create new habits. Because in order for us to fulfill this, we will have to change our mindset. We will have to have the disciplines in place. So tomorrow, I will present a plan. It will be an easy plan, but it's one that we have to be committed to, just like any other commitment something that you really want. So turn your wanters on, because we will have a plan at the end of these 3 days. So I look forward to meeting everyone and to come with pen and pencil in hand, because we are going to be free in 2023. Thank you.
I like that. Just for me before you all leave, and I'm not talking to you, Pastor Cliff and Sister Priscilla. I'm talking to those who've been watching. Just do this before you log off, before we finish. Just type in debt free in 2023 for us. Come on, let's make that commitment. We're doing it. We're not just going to be excited about it. We're trying to give you the tools that you need to reach that goal, to go on that journey, but to complete that journey. So we're going to be with you. We're going to support each other. That's what the Facebook group is about, supporting each other. We want you to be just like Derek Gasquet with your celebration of being debt free. And when I talk to you, I want to be able to talk to you the same way I talk to Derek. And my first question to you, I want it to always be, what, Brother Derek? What do I ask? What do I ask you every time I talk to you?
Where am I now? Where am I right now?
And I'm able to ask you that because you're debt free. So all of you,
Absolutely.
Mark Lee, Mary Jones, Ruth Boyd, Gwen Hicks, Tamar Cagle, Andrea McGee, all of you, Linda Holman, Tiffany Nicole, Michelle, her name just left me, Linda Holman, all of you, when I see you, I want to be able to ask you, where are you now? Because you made the decision to be debt free in 2023. We're looking forward to tomorrow night. Pastor Cliff, thank you so very much. I really, really appreciate it. Pastor Bobby, thank you for the work that you're doing all the way from LA. Brother Derek, thank you from Maryland. That's where you are right now tonight, right? Thank you.
Tonight.
And you're on your way to New York, right? You'll be in New York tomorrow, Brother Derek? Thank
Absolutely.
you for sharing your victory reports. And then, Sister Priscilla, we're looking forward to seeing you on tomorrow. And everyone, this is Dwayne Hunt saying until tomorrow, grace be with you. And thanks for being with us for Debt Free in 2023.
Thank you. Bless you all.